Hi, my name is Phil, and I want to tell you my favourite story from the Bible. I've been reading the Bible ever since I was little, and it's made a massive difference in my life. And this story is a little story that Jesus told to talk about how much God loves us. It's found in the New Testament, in a number of the Gospels, which are stories about Jesus' life and stories about the kind of stories that Jesus told. And it's an amazing story, and it's meant a lot to me in my life. So, there was a man who had two sons. And one son, the younger son, says to his dad, "Dad, would you give me my share of the inheritance now?" Now, when Jesus tells this story, this is a crazy thing to say, because a younger son going to his dad and saying, "Give me my share of the inheritance now," that's like saying to his dad, "I wish you were dead now." And the dad in this culture would never ever have granted this request. But the dad, because he loves his son so much, grants him the request. And then the story goes on that this younger son leaves home for a distant country and squanders, wastes all that money in wild living, just does stupid things with it and throws it all away. And then there was a famine in that country. They ran out of food. And he began to be in need, began to become hungry and thirsty and had no money to buy food with. So what he does is he decides to hire himself out to find some kind of job so that he might be able to eat again. And in doing so, what he does is he ends up feeding pigs. Now this, when the people that Jesus told this story to would have heard this, they would have been disgusted, because not only are pigs disgusting and mucky and dirty, they were also incredibly religiously unclean. And so this son ends up feeding the pigs, and he is so hungry, he ends up wanting to eat the food that the pigs are eating. This is so disgusting, it would have been like the worst crime of modern day. The people who've heard this would have been so utterly disgusted. And then, when the son is sat there in the pigsty, he thinks to himself, how many of my dad's servants have enough food to eat? Why don't I just go back and become one of his servants? I've no chance of being a son again, but I could be a servant. So he begins to prepare a speech in his head, and he starts beginning to think, I will go home, I will say to my dad, "Dad, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to become one of your sons, but make me like one of your servants." So with this speech in his mind, he starts making for home. But the dad's eyes have never left the road down which he's gone. And as the father sees the son approaching, he runs to him. Now this is amazing, because middle-aged men, dads of that age in that culture, did not run. It was considered so undignified, so crazy. The modern day equivalent would be just running through the streets with not much clothes on. And yet when he sees him, he runs. And then when he gets to his son, he throws his arms around him, gives him a massive hug, and says to his servants, "Quick, run, get me some sandals to put on my son's feet, get a robe to put on his back, put a ring on his finger, because once my son was lost, but now he's found. Once he was dead, and now he's alive." What's amazing about that is the robe represented that once again he was a son. The sandals represented he was once again welcome in the home, because servants didn't wear shoes, only sons did. And then the dad says, "Let's have a party. Let's celebrate." They kill the biggest cow they can find, have a massive barbecue, because the son has come home. And this is a story that Jesus tells. And he tells it because it doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter how far you think you can get away from God. There is always a way back. And God is like the dad in the story. You might think you're miles away from God. You might think you've done stuff that might get in the way of your relationship with him. And his eyes are looking down the road. God's love is so big and so amazing. He will always welcome you home. And do you know what? At the heart of the Christian faith is the message of a God who says to every single one of us, come home.